So this video idea has been on my list of videos to make for at least a year. A video on healthy cakes and desserts. Creating these recipes was definitely a bit more tricky than usual because I had to balance the, I guess, nutrition factor while also not wanting to sacrifice any of the good taste. But I'm super happy with the end result. The following treats are all sweetened naturally and come with mostly healthy fats and a bunch of good ingredients in general. But keep in mind, they're still not salad bowls and I'm not a nutritionist, so I guess a better, more fitting title would be healthier desserts and treats, but that's not quite catchy enough for me, so I hope it's okay that way. Also, thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this collection of recipes. We're kicking this off with a really good cake, or pie, a chocolate, coconut, and peanut pie. Let some dates soak in a bowl of water overnight, or simply cover them with hot boiling water and let them sit for at least 15 minutes. Grease a 20cm or 8-inch round springform pan with some coconut oil and set that aside. Also preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius. To your food processor, add the following things: the soaked dates minus the water, oats or oat flour, unsweetened cacao, a little bit of salt, semi-ground or fully ground flax seeds, desiccated coconut, and a handful of peanuts. Add some natural peanut butter, a tablespoon of maple syrup, and last but not least, some non-dairy milk. Press the dough into the baking pan, covering the bottom and 3 to 4 centimeters up the sides. Maybe start with 2/3 of the mixture to fill out the bottom and then use the remaining third for the wall. Bake this for around 15 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. In the meantime, we're going to get started on the chocolate filling. To a small or medium-sized bowl, add some cornstarch, a pinch of salt, some coconut sugar, and unsweetened cacao powder. Give that a good mix before adding your non-dairy milk and vanilla, which I had added a bit later, but it makes sense to do it now. Perhaps the crust is done at this point. Take it out and leave it on the counter. It does not need to cool down fully before adding the filling. Grab a medium-sized pot and a can of coconut milk. So I used full fat, but a reduced fat can of coconut milk would also work. If the cream and water have separated, bring them back together by quickly whisking this for a couple minutes over medium heat. And then pour in the chocolate starch mix as you continue mixing vigorously to prevent any lumps from forming. Once it's all combined, bring this mix up to a boil and keep stirring. Let it simmer for just a couple minutes until it thickens up, like so, and then remove it from the heat and pour it over the baked crust inside your cake pan. Let the pie cool fully. It really helps if you happen to have cold, freezing winter weather going on right now. But the cake can also chill on the counter until it's not piping hot anymore and then be transferred to the fridge for at least half hour, I'd say. Make sure to run a knife along the edges before you remove the springform pan. You could just leave it like so, but if you wanted to, you could also melt some dark chocolate and pour it over the cake. Again, leave it alone then until it has set. I couldn't wait and therefore messed up this shot a bit, but it's fine. Just ignore that bit. But yeah, this tastes so good. If you're a fan of the chocolate and coconut combo, definitely give this one a try. This makes for a wonderful breakfast treat as well. Speaking of breakfast, here's a recipe for fluffy breakfast carrot cakes. Preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius and melt down some coconut oil. Some of it you'll need for the batter and some of it for greasing the muffin molds. In a large mixing bowl, combine all the dry ingredients: spelt flour, small cut oats, coconut sugar. Also add salt, baking powder, and a bunch of spices. cinnamon, nutmeg, turmeric, pepper, and dried ginger. Also add ground flax seeds. I also found this packet of lemon zest in our cupboard. Mix it up and set it aside. In a slightly smaller bowl, combine all the wet ingredients: non-dairy milk, applesauce, apple cider vinegar, vanilla, the melted coconut oil. I didn't melt quite enough coconut oil, so here I filled up the rest with some olive oil. Pour the wet ingredients into the dry, mix everything up until smooth, and let the batter rest for a couple of minutes while you grate a carrot or two. Here I'm assuming the oats have soaked up most of the water, which is why this looks kind of weird, but it's fine. So add the carrot shreds to the batter. At this point you could also, if you wanted to, maybe add a handful of walnuts or almonds, raisins, or chocolate chips even. I kept mine plain. Fill up 9 of the muffin molds. Let these guys cool for at least half an hour before you remove them from the muffin tray. These are so good. I added some soy yogurt and cinnamon to the tops, and frosting them with nut butter would be, I think, a pretty good idea too. Next up, we've got this delicious oat, chocolate, and olive oil mug cake, a recipe I've adapted from Anna's comment here. It sounded so good, I simply had to try. First off, I made some oat flour by simply blending up 1.5 cups of oats. We're obviously not gonna need that much oat flour for the tiny mug cake, but it just blends up easier that way. Since I was gonna flip the cake out onto a plate later to get a nice thumbnail, I greased up a ramekin with a bit of olive oil here, and then combined all the dry ingredients in a separate bowl. But just like Anna said, you could easily mix everything together in the mug that you're gonna bake the cake in. Combine the dry ingredients first. So we've got 1/3 cup of oat flour here, a pinch of salt, some unsweetened cacao powder, baking powder. As for sweetener, I went again for coconut sugar, and then add your olive oil and non-dairy milk. Mix it up. Either transfer the batter to your greased dish or just bake it in the bowl or mug that you mixed everything in, as long as it's oven proof. Bake this for 12 to 15 minutes, or according to Anna, for 1 minute and 10 to 30 seconds in the microwave. I ended up adding my dark chocolate portion externally. I just love filming shots like this. This was quite tasty. Slightly crispy on the outside, but soft and buttery on the inside. It's definitely a bit more crumbly than if you would have added regular flour, but still tastes super nice. Now let's move on to this healthy trifle situation. Alright, for our base, we're gonna make something similar to the crust we made in recipe number 1. So again, have some soaked dates ready. To a food processor, you're gonna add some oats, some salt, unsweetened cacao powder, flax seeds, ground almonds, almond butter, non-dairy milk, and the drained dates. Blend all this up until it is relatively smooth. You might have to scrape down the sides a couple times. Set that aside and work on layer number 2, which is basically just some frozen berries. So we're gonna add those to a small saucepan along with 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. I went for frozen cherries and frozen raspberries. I highly recommend that combo. Let the fruits defrost and then simmer on medium for 3 minutes or so. Start assembling the trifles already. Now, my first instinct was to create a little muffin cups. Those would have turned out great had I baked these, but I wanted to keep the base raw this time, and so getting the cups out of the tray later was tricky to say the least. So I'd recommend sticking with either dessert glasses or just regular glasses or ramekins. And now move on to prepping the final part, the vanilla pudding. In a small bowl, combine some cornstarch and water. Mix it well until smooth. And then to a medium-sized pot, you're going to add some soy milk and some soy cream. You could also substitute both for a can of light or full-fat coconut milk. Bring the heat to medium, add vanilla, maple syrup. I know this doesn't make it healthier per se, but if you don't care and you're doing the soy version and you would like it to be even creamier, you could also add 1 to 2 teaspoons of solid coconut oil. Add a pinch of salt as well, and then pour in your starch mix, making sure to stir immediately because it's going to try to shape itself into clumps very fast. So keep stirring as it's simmering until it turns thicker, and then pour the pudding over the berries. And let everything sit in the fridge for an hour or outside in the snow. Personally, like flavor-wise, I prefer the soy version, but with the coconut cream, it's gonna be a lot more firm in the end. Whatever you do, don't use cashew cream. That was a mess. You'll probably have some of the almond chocolate mix left over, which, by the way, really tastes like Nutella to me. I would highly suggest topping a yogurt bowl off with that, or maybe just use it as a cereal. It's very good. 2 Julias recommended I should try and make healthy tiramisu. The original classic Fit Me Sue version is essentially hard, dry biscuits, such as rusks, Melba toasts, where is my voice? Or zwieback, coffee, vegan yogurt, and cacao powder. I made my own slightly more indulgent version, but still quite nutritious, I would say. I haven't had real tiramisu in ages, but this comes surprisingly close to the memory I have of eating tiramisu when I was like 8. A cup of cashews needs to soak overnight in a bowl of water. The next morning, because we want the nuts to blend up super smooth, you're going to boil the cashews for another 20 to 30 minutes. Then drain them and let them cool off a bit while you go ahead and make some very strong coffee. Grab a food processor, add the drained cashews, some plain soy yogurt, the juice of a lemon, some vanilla. As for sweetener, I went for rice syrup, which is definitely not the strongest sweetener out there. Yeah, after blending this, definitely taste test and see if it's sweet enough for you. Now, depending on which type of yogurt you're gonna use, the cream will have a different type of consistency. Here, I ended up adding some of this stuff here. Carrot flour? If you happen to have some agar-agar, maybe add a bit of that. But as the cream is setting, it's gonna thicken up over time anyway, so don't even worry if you don't have any sort of stabilizer. It's not essential. Taste test and see if you need to adjust anything. Grab your biscuits. Now, I don't know how this is outside of Germany, but these were the only vegan ones I could find. Pour the coffee inside a bowl or a deep dish plate. Grab a square or rectangular shaped smaller casserole dish. Dip each biscuit into the coffee. I kept each one in there for like 5 seconds and then added them to the bottom of the dish, creating the base layer. Add about half the cream mixture on top of that, smoothing it out evenly before you add a second layer of, once again, soaked coffee biscuits. Since these bread-like biscuits are not sweet whatsoever, you could add 1 to 2 tablespoons of maple syrup to the coffee. That way you'd have a nice, even sweetness floating throughout the whole dessert. And finish this off with the other half of cream, smoothing out the top again, and then dusting everything with unsweetened cacao powder. Place this into your fridge for at least 3 to 4 hours or again overnight, and then serve it up. This was super, super yummy, and I don't even like coffee. I don't know why I enjoy tiramisu so much. It's weird. It's of course a very, very inauthentic tiramisu, but it's very tasty. And that is it for today's desserts. I talked so much. I really hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think of these recipes. Let me know how it goes when you try any of them. And actually, we're not quite done yet, because if you stick around for a bit longer, you'll get to witness some serious, high-quality cat content while I talk about Squarespace a bit. How's that sound? With Squarespace, anybody can make a professional and cool-looking website these days. Maybe you've been dreaming about launching your own food blog someday, or maybe you want to create a unique space to showcase your artwork, a place to sell that artwork, or simply just advertise your services to potential customers. Whatever it might be, you can start today. Simply use one of these professionally designed templates, create a domain name, perhaps a logo using Squarespace's logo maker, maybe put up a little email newsletter thingy, and you're good to go. Head to squarespace.com/minarome to save 10% off your first purchase of a new site or domain using the code minarome. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. I'll see you soon. Bye! I can't get it out.